Okay, greetings one and all, and welcome to this math video. In this math video, we'll be considering paper 2. Yes, paper 2 of a Bgcse mathematics examination. And this is the past paper 2011. So we're considering paper 2, mathematics, Bgcse past examination. So let's consider these questions together. Okay, let's look at question number 1. Question number 1 says, express this ratio in its simplest form. So we have the ratio $6 to 72 cents. So we have $6 to 72 cents. So the first thing that we have to do, we understand that these two are not in the same units. So let's first convert them to the same units. So I'm going to convert the dollars into cents. How are we going to do that? We're going to multiply 6 times 100 because we know that 100 cents is $1. So that means that 600 cents is $6. So 6 times 100 is 600. So we have 600 cents. So all we did was we converted $6 to 600 cents so that both of these can be in cents. Now we can simplify. So what number goes into 672 without leaving a remainder? Let's try 12. We know that 600 divided by 12 is 50, and 72 divided by 12 is 6. But this still can go lower. This still can be simplified some more. What number can go into 50 and 6? Well, we know that 2 can go into 50 and 6 without leaving a remainder. 50 divided by 2 is 25, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. And so the answer is 25 to 3. So $6 to 72 cents is 25 to 3 in its simplest form. So let's move on to the next question. The next question says, from the set of numbers, the square root of 25, 17, 121, and the square root of 32, write down a perfect square. My question is, what is a perfect square? So here I have a list of some perfect squares. The perfect squares are the ones that are in red. So we know that 1 times 1 is what? 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. So 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 81, 100, 121, 144, 169, 196, and 225, and the list goes on. They are square numbers. So when a number is multiplied by itself, it produces a square number. I just say when a whole number multiplied by itself, it produces a square number. So we have 11 times 11, and 11 times 11 is 121. And so that means that 121 is a square number. And so here we have inside the set, we do have 121. And so 121 is a square number because 11 times 11 is 121. So the correct answer for this one is 121. Let's move on to 2B. It says, from the set of numbers, we have to write down an irrational number. So they want us to write an irrational number. What do we mean by irrational number? 2 criteria to think about when we're looking at irrational numbers. The first one is they are non-terminating decimals, which means that they go on forever and ever and ever. And the next thing is that they are non-recurring decimals, which means that they do not have a consistent repeating pattern. So for example, if we have 3.66666, that's a consistent pattern. Or if we have 5.65656565, that's a recurring pattern. Those would be rational numbers. But irrational numbers do not have a consistent repeating pattern. So if we look at the square root of 32 and we would put in our calculator, the square root of 32 is 5.6568542, and it continues. So if you notice that it is a non-terminating decimal, which means it continues on and on. It is a non-recurring decimal because it doesn't have a consistent repeating pattern. So it's not like it's 5.33333333 or 8585858585. No, it doesn't have a consistent repeating pattern, and it continues on forever and ever. And so the square root of 32 is an irrational number. Let's move on to question number 3A. It says, let n represent the number. Write each phrase as an algebraic expression. So it says the number, which we know is n. So we say let n represent that number. So the number increased by 6. So we're going to say n plus 6 because it's the number n increased by 6. So it's plus 6. Next question, 3B, it says let n represent the number. And we want to write 3 times the difference between the number and 8. So this is very important. We have 3 times the difference between the number and 8. So let's look at this part. The difference between the number and 8. What is the difference? Difference means subtraction. So we have to say n minus 8. So the difference between the number and 8. So n minus 8. And it says 3 times that. So we got to multiply 3 times this entire expression. So it's going to be 3 times n minus 8. And that's the correct answer for number 3B. Moving right along, let's move on to number 4. It says a light year, which is the distance that light travels in 1 year, is 5. This is 5,900,000,000,000,000 miles. So this one would be, that would be hundreds, that would be 100,000, this would be a million, this would be a billion, so this would be trillion. Oh, that's 5.9 trillion, all right? So a light year, the distance that a light travels in 1 year is 5.9 trillion miles. So 5,900,000,000,000 miles, right? That's how you pronounce that number. And they say express this in scientific notation. So what we're gonna do is we have 5 trillion because this is, again, this is hundreds, this is 100,000s, this is 100 millions, this is 100 billions, and this is a trillion. So it's 5,900,000,000,000. It's a huge number. And so it says express this number in scientific notation. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from here. Like, so we have a decimal point right there. And we're going to move. All right. And we're going to count how much times we move over. And so the decimal point is here. Let's move it over. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we move the decimal point 12 times. And so if we move it here, it's going to be 5.9. So 5.9, that's when we move the decimal. And we're going to say, how much times did we move over? Well, we move over 12 times. So we're going to say 10 to the power of 12 because we moved 12 times. So again, it's 5.9 because we moved the decimal point here. And we have to multiply by 10 to the power of 12 because we moved 12 times. And so that is this number expressed in scientific notation. So 5,900,000,000,000 in scientific notation is 5.9 times 10 to the power of 12. Now it says Proxima Centauri, the nearest star to our solar system, is 4.3 light years away. Express this distance in scientific notation. So it's 4.3 light years away. So that's 1 light year, you ain't finished yet. Then another light year, you ain't finished yet. You ain't reached there yet. Then another light year, that's 3 light years. And another light year, that's 4 light years, 0.3. So 4.3 light years away. So we have to multiply, all right? So we have to multiply 4.3 by 1 light year. So it's gonna be, so the one in red, that's a light year. And 4.3, we have to multiply 4.3 by 1 light year because it takes what? 4.3 light years. And so it's multiplication. So basically we're multiplying 4.3 by 5.9 times 10 to the 12th power. What we're going to do is we're going to multiply the decimals. That should be a good way to do it. So 4.3 times 5.9, that gives us 25.37. We bring down the 10 to the power of 12. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this decimal point over. All right. And when I move this decimal point over, what that does is that gives me the permission to write 10 to the power of 1. Because if you consider this one in purple, 2.357 times 10 to the power of 1, I can write this, right? Sorry, this one in purple is the same thing as 25.37. But the problem is for scientific notation, we only could use numbers that are, like, it cannot be greater than 10. Okay, so for scientific notation, you can't have a number that is greater than 10. And 25 is well over 10. So it's too much. So we have to bring it below 10. All right. And it can't be lower than 0 either. Okay. So definitely what we have to do is we have to make sure that this number is lowered. So we, move the decimal point over. And so it's going to be 2.537 times 10 to the power of 1. Okay. This number in purple is the same number. I just express in a different way. all right? And so now we have 10 to the power of 1 times 10 to the power of 12, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to add the powers, all right? Because if you have the same base, you could add the powers. So it's going to be 2.537 times 10 to the power of 1 plus 12. And that's 2.357 times 10 to the power of 13, okay? And so this is in scientific notation because this number is not bigger than 10, and it's not lower than 0, and times 10 to the power of 13, this is good. So this is in scientific notation because this number is good, and this is 10 to the power of an integer. And so it is in scientific notation. And so that's why we needed to change this number 25, because it's too much. It should not be bigger than 10. So our results is 2.537 times 10 to the power of 13. And we know that is in scientific notation because 2.357, that is less than 10, but greater than 1. It could be greater than, so for scientific notation, it could be greater than or equal to 1, but have to be less than 10, okay? Not 0. I know, I think I said 0 at the beginning, but it has to be greater than or equal to 1, but less than 10. So this number right here, it has to be greater than or equal to 1, but less than 10. And that's why 25.37 could not work, because the number here that we are multiplying by 10, which is the base, times 10 to the power of 12, this number here has to be greater than or equal to 1, but less than 10. And obviously 25.37 is not going to work. I know I said 0 at the beginning, but it's actually 1. It can be, the number can be greater than or equal to 1, but less than 10. Okay, and so that's why this is too big, so we had to make it smaller. And so 2.537 is good because it's greater than or equal to 1, and it's less than 10. So this is in a good spot. It's in a good category because it's not big, it's not bigger than 10, and it's not less than 1. Okay, so that's why this could work. All right, and obviously we have the base, which is 10. We need that for scientific notation, and we have an integer, which is our power. Okay, let's move on to the next question, which is 5A. So it says a tourist visited the Bahamas when the exchange rate was €1 equals to $1.56 Bahamian. So the exchange rate is €1 equals to $1.56 in Bahamian money. Upon arrival, she converted €650 into Bahamian dollars. Calculate the amount of Bahamian dollars she received. Now, this is very important. €1 is more than like €1, like for example, if we have €1 and $1 Bahamian dollar, like they are not equal, right? Because €1 equals $1.56 in Bahamian money. Okay, so the amount of money that she is going to receive is going to be more because €1 is not the same as $1 Bahamian dollar. Like €1 is more than $1 Bahamian dollar. So the amount of money here, we expect it to be more than 650. Like she can't have exactly 650 and she can't have less. She have to have more than 650. So how are we going to do it? We're going to multiply. So the Bahamian dollars that she's going to receive is 1.56 times 650, and it's going to be 1,014. Okay. So the amount of Bahamian dollars you receive is 1,014. So it's definitely bigger than 650. Let's move on to the next question. So the answer is 1,014. Now we could move on to the next question. So it says at the end of her vacation, she converted her remaining 117 Bahamian back to euros. Okay, calculate the amount of euros she received. Well, in this case, we're going to divide. So the euros she received is going to be $117 divided by 156, and that gives us 75. So the amount of euros that she received is going to be 75 euros. So for the first one, we multiplied. For the last one, we divided. Let's move on to this next question. This right here is a linear equation. It says n divided by 10 equals to 9 minus n divided by 5. Let's consider this equation on this slide. So the first thing we're going to do is we notice that we have denominators. Let's try to get rid of these denominators, right? That's how it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the whole equation by 10, all right? Because if I multiply by 10, then I can get rid of this 10 at the bottom, and I can also get rid of this 5 because 5 could go into 10. And so let's do it. So multiply this equation by 10 because these two 10s could cancel out each other. And then I can multiply 9 by 10, and I can also multiply n over 5 by 10. So I multiply the whole equation by 10. So I can't just multiply one term by 10. If I multiply one term by 10, I have to multiply the whole thing by 10. So 10 times n is 10n over 10. 9 times 10 is 90. And n times 10 is 10n, or all over 5. We can cancel the 10 and the 10, they cancel out, leaving us with just n. We still have 90 here, and we know that 10 divided by 5 is 2. So we left with what? N equals 2, 90 minus 2n. So what we did, we took this equation that had fractions, and we basically eliminated the fractions, and that's why we multiplied everything by 10 to eliminate the fractions. Now we don't have any fractions any longer. Now this is a regular linear equation, and it's a simple one that we could actually easily do. So we're going to send the negative 2n over. When we send it over, it becomes positive. So it's going to be 2n plus n equals to 90. We can add the 2n plus n. That gives us 3n. We divide both sides by 3. And we cancel out the 3's. So we are left with n equals to 90 divided by 3, which is 30. So 90 divided by 3 is 30. So n is equal to 30. And so that's how we would do this question. Now, there's another way that you could do this question. I'm not going to explain it thoroughly, but this is if you've done this question this way, and you might be wondering, okay, how come he didn't show it this way? This is another way that you can do it, by combining the two fractions. So some persons might want to combine the two fractions together, then cross multiply, and then do the cancellations. This is another way to do it. Like I said, I'm not going to explain this one in depth, but this is it for your view. If you have done it this way, this is also a good way to do it. Both way works. In both ways, we get n is equal to 30. All right, let's move on to the next question. The next question is number 7. It says the diagram below represents a rectangular tank of length 22 inches, width 15 inches, and height 8 inches. So write down and simplify an expression in terms of h for the volume of the tank. So we know that volume of this shape is going to be length times width times height. And we know that the length is 22, we know that the width is 15, and we know that the height is h. And so we know that's length times width times height because it says a rectangular tank, all right? And if you're looking at a 3D shape like this, it's going to be length times width times height, because it's a rectangular tank. So length times width times height is our equation. We know 22 times 15. We know that h is the height. They haven't given us a numerical value for h. So we multiply 22 times 15, that gives us 30. And 30 times h is just 30h. And so an expression in terms of h for the volume of the tank is 330h. Now let's move on to the next question. This one says, and we have to pay very close attention to this, right? It says the tank holds 20 gallons of liquid. All right. Then it says the tank holds 20 gallons of liquid when full, right? Calculate the value of h. Well, we know that 1 gallon is equal to 231 cubic inches. And so let's do that. Let's try to change it into cubic inches. Here I have cubic centimeters, but it's supposed to be cubic inches. So this is not right. It's not supposed to be cubic centimeters. It's supposed to be cubic inches. So let me correct that. So we have, in order to convert the 20 gallons into cubic inches, we have to multiply 20 times 231, and that'll give us 4,620 cubic inches. Okay, so it's supposed to be cubic inches. So let's write that. So what I did was I converted the 20 gallons into cubic inches. And so that means that 20 gallons is actually 4,620 cubic inches. All right, just by multiplying. That's the first thing we want to do. We want to change it to cubic inches. So now that we have that, the volume of this thing, we know it's 20 gallons, but it's actually 4,620 cubic inches. So let's use that number. So we know that the volume is equal to 4,620 cubic inches. And we remember the expression from before. We know also know that volume is 330 times h. So we got to put those equations equal to each other because volume is 4,620 cubic inches, and it's also equal to that expression that we found in the previous slide. So those two are equal because they are talking about the volume of the same tank. And so we want to rearrange, we want to switch the equation just so that our h could be on the left-hand side. And now this should be very easy. All we're going to do is divide both sides by 330. We cancel the 330s, and so h is going to be equal to 4,620 divided by 330. And so h is going to be equal to 14. And so the height is actually 14. All right. Next question, this is question number 8a. It says, solve the inequality. We have 7 minus 3x is greater than or equal to, that's what the sign means, greater than or equal to 13. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to send the 7 over. When we send the 7 over, it's going to be equal to negative 3x. So the next line we're going to write is negative 3x is greater than or equal to 13 minus 7. Why is it minus 7? Because it was a positive 7. When we send it over, it becomes a minus 7. And so we are left with negative 3x. It's greater than or equal to 13 minus 7 is 6. And so we just left with 6. Now we're going to divide both sides by negative 3. And then we know that negative 3 divided by negative 3, well, those two cancel out. So this and this, they cancel out. And so we are left with, and we know that 6 divided by negative 3 is going to be negative 2. So we are left with negative 2. So we're just left with x on this side. And we're just left with negative 2 on this side. What's important for inequalities is that if you are dividing by a negative, you must change the sign. So if you notice that my sign was in this direction, that's the direction it was in. But because I divided by negative 3, I have to change the sign to this direction. Okay, that's just a rule for inequalities. When you are dividing by a negative for inequalities, you have to change the sign. Now, if you're dividing by a positive, like you're dividing by a positive number, like you don't have to change the sign. The sign remains. But if you're dividing by a negative number, you have to change the sign for inequalities. So the answer for this is x is less than or equal to negative 2. That's the inequality that's the set. That's the solution set that solves this inequality, for which, or I could say this is the range, or this is the set of numbers for which this inequality would be true. All right, so let's move on to question 8b. It says graph your solution for A on a directed number line. So we have the solution that we found, which is x is less than or equal to negative 2. We have our directed number line, which is basically a number line. You have to draw this number line. And remember, notice that we have what? Negative 2. So I'm going to put a circle above negative 2. Notice that the circle is shaded in. The reason why the circle is shaded in is because you see that this symbol below, this line, that means that x is equal to, because this is less than. We have the less than symbol, but it's not only less than, it's less than or equal to. So that line means equal to. So because it's equal to, because x could also be 2, we have to shade in the circle. We're not just going to leave it unshaded. But if it was just less than, that means we do not include negative 2. So I didn't have to shade the circle. But in this case, I have to shade the circle because it's equal to 2 as well. Now, where do we have numbers that are less than negative 2? Well, it's going to be to the left, because these numbers on this side, they're greater than negative 2. And so we're going to put our arrow this way. And so that's the solution set for our inequality. So this is how we graph our solution on the number line. All right, let's move on to number 9. This is a simultaneous equation. It says solve the following pair of simultaneous equation. We have y is equal to negative 2x plus 5 and x plus 3y is equal to 0. I am going to solve this simultaneous equation by substitution because they explicitly give us what y is. So elimination would not be the best way. I know persons want to do, I know, there are two ways to do simultaneous equation. You got to do substitution or elimination. But I'm going to use substitution because it's like it's telling us to use substitution because of how explicit y is. Y is explicitly given. So we're going to call this equation 1. We're going to call this equation 2. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute equation 1, which is this one. I'm going to put it into equation 1 and equation 2. So this equation, I'm going to put it into equation 2. So what is equation 2? Equation 2 is x plus 3y, isn't it? It's equal to 0. So this is supposed to be x plus 3y. So let me put the 3y there. This is x plus, let me put the 3y. X plus 3y equals to 0. And so remember, this is equation 1. This is equation 1. And I'm taking equation 1 and I'm putting it into equation 2. So I'm putting what y is, the value for y, into equation 2. And so what y is negative 2x plus 5. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking negative 2x plus 5 and I'm putting it into equation 2. Okay, so now that's in. Now I gotta solve for x because all of my variables are x. So let's multiply. So we're gonna multiply 3 times negative 2x. We're gonna multiply 3 times 5. So negative 3 times 2 is 6x. And 3 times negative 2 is 6x. Let's get that right. 3 times negative 2x is negative 6x. And 3 times 5 is 15. So that's how we get this. We distribute. Again, 3 times negative 2x is negative 6x. And 3 times 5 is 15. And we just bring down the x. Now we have x minus 6x plus 15 equals to 0. We send the 15 over the equal sign, and it becomes a negative 15. So we are left with 0 minus 15 and x minus 6x. X minus 6x is just negative 5x, and 0 minus 15 is negative 15. We divide both sides by negative 5. We cancel with the 5, so we cancel this negative 5 with another negative 5, leaving us with just x. A negative 15 divided by negative 5 is going to be positive 3. So negative 15 divided by negative 5 is positive 3. So x is equal to positive 3. Now we know what x is. And so what we're going to do is we're going to substitute our value for x into equation 1. What is equation 1? Equation 1 is y is equal to negative 2x plus 5. We're going to put our value for x, which is 3, into this equation. And so x is 3, so y is equal to negative 3 times, y is equal to negative 2 times 3 plus 5. Again, we put the x into this equation. The x is equal to 3, put it in. And so that's going to be equal to negative 2 times 3. What is negative 2 times 3? That's negative 6 plus 5. And so negative 6 plus 5 is definitely negative 1. So y is equal to negative 1. So our answer is x is equal to 3 and y is equal to negative 1. And so that's our answer for the simultaneous equation. Let's move on to question number 10. Here we have circle theorem. And so it says in the diagram, O is the center. So that's very important. O is the center. And so if O is the center, this is very important. That means that let me get it right. That means that this particular, that means that this particular line right there, all right, this one that I'm drawing in red, this is the diameter. Because if O is the center, the line that goes from end to end on a circle through the center is the diameter. So that's very important. So O is the center, so that means that AC is the diameter. So O is the center of the triangle, O is the center of the circle ABC, and the angle ACB is equal to 36. The line DC is the tangent to the circle, so this is the tangent to the circle, DC. Okay, so the question is they want us to find the value of angle ABC. Now, it's very important for us to know what they're talking about. They say they want to find the angle, the value of the angle ABC. What they're actually asking you for is the one in the middle. All right, they really want you to figure out what is the angle of B. So we have this angle right there, right? Angle B, like what is the value of this one? Like what is it, right? And so for this one, we have to remember our circle theorem. The circle theorem says angles in a semicircle or subtended by what? The diameter are 90 degrees. So we have the diameter, which is AB, and we have this angle, which is the green one that is subtended by that diameter. Or basically we have this angle, which is in the semicircle, right? Because the diameter cuts the circle into two halves. So this half is a semicircle. So the angle here is 90, all right? So make no mistake about that. The angle here is 90. Is the angle that's inside the semicircle is 90. And so we have the exact same situation now. This is the diameter, all right? And this is the angle within the diameter. Oh, this is the angle within that semicircle. So B is going to be 90 degrees. And so the correct answer for this one is 90 degrees because of that theorem. Let's move on to the next question, question 10b. So we have here the same diagram, but they want us to find out the value of angle BAC. Again, they were referring to the one in the middle, okay? So they want this one, okay? So they want to know the value of this angle. So what we know that the angles in a triangle, the interior angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. We also know that this angle is 90 degrees. So we have two already. We know that this is 36. We know that this is 90. So how are we going to figure out the value of the other one? All we got to do is we have to add 90 and 36 and subtract it from 180 degrees. And then we can get what A is. So A is definitely 54. Okay, so angle A is 54. And if you add 54 and 90 and 36, they are in a triangle. They add up to 180 degrees. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. The next question says we want to calculate the value of angle BCD. That's angle BCD. So we're really referring to angle C, that's the one in the middle. And they say BCD. So let's make that very clear. BCD. So what they're really referring to is this angle right there. Right? Like what is the value of this angle? Okay, so for this one, we need to remember our theorem, the alternate segment theorem. The alternate segment theorem says that the angle that lies between a tangent and the chord is equal to the angle subtended by the same chord in the alternate segment. So if you look at this, right, what we have here, this right here, this green one, which I'm outlining in red, this is what we call a chord. And this line right here, right, this line right here, this is the tangent. So what they're saying is that this angle right here, the angle that is formed by the chord and the tangent, is going to be equal to this angle right here. All right, that's the ultimate segment theorem. The angle that is subtended by the same chord. So these two angles are equal. That's what they're trying to say. So if we look at our circle theorem, this one we have the same thing. So we have the chord BC. We also have the tangent. All right. And so we have this angle here. So this angle is going to be equal to the angle which the chord subtends. So the same angle right here, this one. So these two have to be equal because this chord, if we look at it, this chord subtends this angle, right? All right, so this chord subtends this angle. So that means that this angle is the angle that is equal to this one based on that theorem. And so if this is 54 degrees, like we saw in the previous question, so this is also going to be 54. So that means that C is equal to 54 degrees. All right, so let's move on to question BI. It says each interior angle of a regular polygon is 162. Calculate the size of each exterior angle. Well, we know that the interior angle is the angle that's inside the polygon. The exterior angle is the angle that's outside. we know that if we add the interior angle plus the exterior angle, they should add up to 180 degrees. So that's very important. So as you can see, like the interior angle, right? This is the interior angle, the one in the middle. And the exterior angle, sorry, the one inside the polygon, I should say. So the one inside the polygon is the interior angle. The one outside is the exterior angle. And if you look, if we add them, it should be what? 180 degrees, okay? So that means that if I want to figure what the exterior angle is, it's going to be whatever my interior angle is minus 180 degrees. So the exterior angle is going to be 180 degrees minus the interior angle. We know that the interior angle here is 162. So my exterior angle is going to be 180 minus 162, which is going to be what? 18 degrees. And so that's how we get it. Exterior angle is equal to 180 degrees minus the interior angle. And the interior angle in this case is 162. Okay, so moving on, let's look at question BI. It says each interior angle of a regular polygon is 162. Calculate the number of sides of this polygon. Well, the formula says that if we are trying to figure out the size of the interior angle, that's going to be equal to 180 degrees multiplied by n minus 2 all over n. They do not give you this formula in the exam, so I suggest that you memorize this formula. So we already know what the size, so that you could be able to use it. But the thing is, we already know the size of the interior angle that was given in the question, wasn't it? The size of the interior angle was given, which is what? 162. And so we have 162. That was the size of the interior angle. I'm just going to put it over 1 because I'm preparing to cross multiply. So if we cross multiply, it's going to be 162 multiplied by n, and 1 times 180 times n minus 2. 1 times 180 n minus 2 is going to be 180 degrees n minus 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute 180 times n, 180 times 2. So we are left with 180 times n multiplied by 180 times 2, which is 360. At this point, I can send the 180 over the equal signs. That's what I'm going to do. And so we are left with 162 minus 180n is equal to negative 360 degrees. Let's work on the left-hand side. We have 162n minus 180n. And so we're going to subtract. That's going to give us a negative 18n is equal to negative 360. We divide both sides by negative 18. And then we cancel. So these two, you know, the 18, negative 18 and negative 18, they cancel each other. So we just left with n on this side. And negative 360 degrees divided by negative 18 on the right-hand side. And so we divide both sides by, after we already divide both sides by negative 18, notice that we have negative 360 divided by negative 18. And so what is negative 360 divided by negative 18? That's going to be 20. And so that means that n is 20, which means that the number of sides of this polygon is going to be 20 sides. So the polygon that has a interior angle of 160 degrees, the number of sides that it has is 20. That's a lot of sides. So let's move on to question number 11a. Here we want to factorize. And so we have to figure out, like, what are the common factors here? So 3, 6, and 5, they are not common factors. 3, 6, and 5. There's no number that can go into all three of them. How about A? Well, A is a part of each term in there. A is in there, A is in there, and A is also in there. So we're going to pull out A. How about B? B is in this term, B is in this term, and B is in this term. So our common factors are going to be AB. So we're going to pull that out. So AB is our common factor. So what we're going to say? We're going to say, okay, AB. Notice that we are trying to get the idea with this is that we're trying to get 3a squared b back again. So how are we going to do that? Well, if we take AB and we multiply it by 3a, notice that a times a is a squared. B times that is just b on the side. And we just have the 3. So AB times 3a is going to be 3a squared b. So that side is good. So we know that 3a is the one that's supposed to be left over. And so that's good. So we know that that's Perfect. Next up, we have negative 6ab. But if we do ab times 6, we get 6ab. So we know that this is the right thing that's left over. And let's look at this one. A times 5b is just 5ab squared. How do we know that? Because look, b times b is what? B squared. Okay. And a is just going to fit right in, and we already have the 5. So it's going to be 5ab to the power of 2. And so this is the correct answer. AB, open bracket, 3a minus 6 plus 5b. So let's look at question number 11b. It says to simplify. Here we have 2 minus 5, open bracket, 5. Sorry, we have 2 minus 5, open bracket, y minus 7, close bracket, plus 3y. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply. I'm going to multiply negative 5 times y. And I'm going to multiply negative 5 times negative 7. Negative 5 times y is going to be negative 5y. And we know that a negative and a negative is going to be a positive. So 5 times 7 is 35. And then we just bring down the plus 3y. And this is 2. Next, we're going to combine like terms. So we know that we have negative 5y and we have positive 3y. So we're going to do, I'm going to bring them together. Okay. So let's bring them together. And I have 2 and 35. So I'm also going to bring them together. And so let's do that. So we have negative 5y plus 3y. And we have plus 2 plus 35. Now let's work on our like terms. Negative 5y plus 3y is just going to be negative 5 plus 3. What is negative 5 plus 3? That's going to be negative 2. So we're left with what? Negative 2y. And we haven't done anything to this. We just bring it down. What is 2 plus 35? Well, 2 plus 35 is going to be 37. And so the answer is negative 2y plus 37. Moving right along, we have then this next question. This is a pie chart question. It says the circle graph shows the results of a survey on the internet provider subscription. A total of 550 residences were polled. So here we have this pie chart representing the results that they got. They say calculate the number of residences using global. And so we know that global accounts for what? 18%? 18% of what? 18% of the 550 residences. And so we know that 18% of 550 is going to give us how much residences it's using global. So we know that of means multiplication. So we're going to multiply 18% by 550 by 550. And if you just put it in your calculator, 18% times 550, that's going to just be 99. And so the answer here is 99. All right, moving on. So it's 99 residents, okay? Sorry, 99 residencies, not residents. So let's fix that. Residencies, C-E-S. So 99 residencies. Okay, so that's the correct one. So moving right along, let's move on to number 12b. It says, calculate the percentage of the sector representing flash. So flash accounts for what? 72 degrees. Well, we know that the full thing is what? 360, because notice the circle. So we know that it's going to be 72 over 360. Why over 360? Because one revolution of complete circle is what? 360 degrees. So it's going to be 72 over 360. That's the fraction. But we want it as a percentage. So we're going to multiply it by 100. How do we do it? We know that 72 multiplied by 100 is 7,200. And 360 multiplied by 1. So we multiply the top together. We multiply the bottom together. 360 times 1 is 360. So we have 7,200 divided by 360. And we divide all two. 7,200 divided by 360. That's going to be equal to what? 20. And so the percentage representing flash is going to be what? 20%. Now let's move on to question C. It says they want the percentage of the sector representing speedy. They want the percentage. We already know that this one from the previous question, we already know that 72 degrees. We already know that accounts for 20%, so let's make a note of that right there. So this right there is 20%, okay? So we already know this is 20%, this is 18, this is 35. And we just have to figure out like what is for speedy? What is it for speedy? Well, the whole full thing is 100%. We're just gonna add 20 plus 18 plus 35%, add them all together, and then we get 73, and we subtract 73 from 100, and so the answer is 27%. So the percentage of the sector representing speedy is 27%. Okay, let's move on to question 12D. It says, calculate the degrees of the sector representing cyber wave. So this is 35%. It's going to be 35% of the total amount of degrees, which is 360. So 35% of 360, remember 360 is, that's a complete circle. That's one revolution. That's a full circle. So 360 degrees is what we're looking at. So 35% of 360 degrees. And so 35% multiply, we know of means multiplication. And so 35% times 360, you could put it in your calculator, that equals to 126 degrees. So the degrees of the sector representing cyber wave is 126 degrees. Okay, let's move on to question number 13. So we have 13A. Here we want to figure out, here they give us a diagram. It says Miss Samuels traveled 24 kilometers on the highway from Elmvale to crossings. Her average speed was 660 kilometers per hour. Calculate the time it took her to travel from Elmvale to crossings. So we want to figure what the time it took. So we want to figure out time taken. Let's consider our speed, distance, and time triangle. What this is saying is that distance is equal to speed times time. Speed is equal to distance over time, and time is equal to distance divided by speed. And so here we have the formula. Time is equal to distance divided by speed. What is the distance? The distance is 24 kilometers. That's what it says in the question. What is the speed? The speed is what? 60 kilometers per hour. So we put it in 24 kilometers divided by 60 kilometers per hour. And so if you do put in your calculator, 24 divided by 60 is 0.4. So the time taken is 0.4 hour. But what is 0.4 hour? Well, we multiply that by 60, and that gives us 24 minutes. So 0.4 times 60, we converted the hours to minutes, so we are actually dealing with 24 minutes. So it took her 24 minutes to travel from Elmvale to crossing. So she turned off the highway at crossing, traveling to her home in 12 minutes at a speed of 45 kilometers. So she's traveling 24 kilometers from, I know I said Elmvale, but some people might pronounce that Elm Valley. I don't know the correct pronunciation, to be honest, but that's besides the point. So she's traveling from Elm Valley or Elmvale to, but when she got, it says she turned off at crossing. So she turned off at crossing to travel to her home, right? So she turned off at crossing. So this is crossing, and she turned off there, and she traveled to her home in 12 minutes. Okay. At a speed of what? 45 kilometers per hour. So calculate the distance. So here they want the distance traveled. So calculate the distance she traveled from crossing to her home. So from this point to her home, calculate the distance. Okay, so we're gonna still use the speed, distance, time triangle. We know that distance is speed multiplied by time. And so let's remember that. So distance is speed multiplied by time. So we need the speed and we need the time. What is the time? Well, we know that it's what time. They tell us here clearly the time is 12 minutes. Let's convert that to hours. So how are we going to convert minutes to hours? We just got to divide by 60. 12 divided by 60 is going to be 0.2. So she traveled 0.2 hour. Okay, so now we know the time. The time is 0.2 hour or 12 minutes. So what is the speed? The speed is 45 kilometers. They told us that in the question. So let's do it. We know the distance is equal to speed times time. So that means the distance is going to be equal to 45 kilometers times 0.2 hour. And so if we do 45 times 0.2, we get 9. And so that's 9 kilometers. And so that means that the distance traveled from crossing to home is 9 kilometers. Okay, let's move on to question number 14. We have 14a. Here we have a triangle. And it says the triangle has sides x plus 2, 2x plus 3, and 3x plus 2 centimeters, and an altitude of x centimeters. So it says write down and simplify an expression in terms of x for the perimeter of this triangle. Remember, perimeter is the distance of the entire shape. So that means that we're looking at the outside distance. So the distance along the shape. So x plus 2. So you want to write down an expression for the perimeter. So that's going to be this distance. We know this distance is x plus 2. So that's going to be x plus 2 plus what? This distance as well, plus 2x plus 3. And we know we're going to cover this distance as well, plus 3x plus 2. So we have to add all of them together because that's what we do for perimeter. Again, it's x plus 2 plus 2x plus 3 plus 3x plus 2. So we have to add all of them together. And so that's how we got those numbers. X plus 2 plus 2x plus 3 plus 3x plus 2. Okay, moving right along, we have to bring together all of our x's. So we have x plus 2x plus 3x. Let's bring that all together. And we have to also bring down all of our numbers, which is 2 plus 3 plus 2. And so let's bring that together. X plus 2x plus 3x. And then 2 plus 3 plus 2. So bringing them all together, we have x plus 2x plus 3, x plus 2x plus 3x is 6x, and then 2 plus 3 plus 2 is going to be 7. So the answer is 6x plus 7. That's a simplified expression for the perimeter of this triangle. Okay, let's move on to question. Oh, so let me just write it down. The answer is 6x plus 7. Okay, let's move on to question B. It says, when x is given to the nearest whole number, the perimeter is 37. Use your expression from A to write and solve an equation for x. So we have, we know they tell us that the perimeter is equal to what? 37 centimeters. That's what they told us. And so that means that the expression that we got, which is 6x plus 7, we're going to set that equal to 37 because that was an expression for the perimeter. So now we just got to, solve for x to figure out like what x is. We're going to send the 7 over the equal sign. So when we send it over the equal sign, that becomes -7. So 6x is equal to 37 minus 7. 37 minus 7, we subtract, that's going to be 30. So we have 6x minus 30. 6x, sorry, we have, let me do this again. So 6x plus 7 equals to 37. We send the 7 over. That becomes, it was positive 7, it becomes -7. So now we have 37 minus 7, and that becomes 30. And so we have 6x is equal to 30. We divide both sides by 6. And when we divide both sides by 6, we cancel out the 6's here. So x is going to be equal to 30 divided by 6. We know that 30 divided by 6 is 5. So the answer here is that x is going to be equal to 5. So now the question says, okay, calculate the lengths of the altitude. Now, they want us to calculate the length of the altitude and also the base. Now, what is the altitude? All right, well, the altitude, if we look at this triangle, the altitude is this length right here. Okay, so if we want to figure what the altitude is, that is going to be this, right? That's the altitude right there. So what is the length of the altitude? Well, they tell us in the diagram it's x, and we already know that x is 5. So the length of the altitude is 5. So the altitude is equal to 5. Let's move on to the next question. Now they want the base, okay? The base is this. This is the base of the triangle. All right. The altitude is perpendicular to the base, and the base is here. So the base is what? 3x plus 2. What is x? Well, x is 5, so we substitute 5 in here. We replace it for x. 3 times 5 is 15, and 15 plus 2 is 17. So that means that the length of the base is going to be 17. So now that we know the altitude of the triangle, which we saw, which was 5, we know the base of the triangle, which we saw is 17. They want us to figure out the area of the triangle. An area is base times height. The altitude is also called the height. So the base times the height, that's how we're going to get the triangle, the area of the triangle. Base times height divided by 2. What is the base? Well, the base is 17. We saw that earlier in our previous question. What is the height? The height is 5 centimeters. So it's going to be 17 times 5 divided by 2. 17 times 5 is 85. And if you divide that by 2, you get 42.5. So the answer is going to be 42.5 centimeters squared, because we know that this thing is in centimeters. So it's going to be 42.5 centimeters squared, and that's going to be our area of the triangle. How do we get that? We multiply 17 by 5. That gives us 85. And we divide that by 2. That's 42.5. Now let's move on to question 15. Question 15 says, the diagram shows the top view of a regular case of cans of soda. Each can has a diameter of 7 centimeters. So calculate the length and the width of the case. But the length is the longest side and the width is the shortest side. So let's deal with the length first. So the length is going to be 7 centimeters times 6. How do we get that? Well, look carefully. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, and this is 6. And we know that the diameter for each one of these is what? 7. So it's 7 times 6, because the diameter is 7. And so each one of these is going to have a diameter of 7. So from end to end, it's going to be 7 times 6, which is 42 centimeters. Now the width is going to be calculated in the same manner. That's 7 times 4. This is 1. This is 2. This is 3. And this is 4. And so it's going to be 7 times 4. And so it's going to be 28 centimeters. So the length is 42 centimeters and the width is 28 centimeters. Let's move on to the next question. It says, now calculate the area of the base of the case. So the area is going to be length times width, because it's a rectangular case of cans. We already know the length is 42 centimeters and the width is 28 centimeters. So it's going to be 1,176 centimeters squared. And that's the area. 1,176 centimeters squared. Okay, let's move on to the next question. It says, now we want to figure out the total area occupied by the cans. Okay. These are, the cans have a circular heading. And so if we look at it, what we have to do is we have to use the area for a circle. So the area of a circle is pi r squared. So pi in this case, we know is 22 over 7. R is the radius. Now 7 centimeters is diameter. Half of diameter is the radius. So you have to divide 7 by 2 to get 3.5. That is the radius. So let's figure out the area of one can. Okay, what is the area of one can? So let's consider this can. We're going to figure out the area of this one can. That's going to be pi r squared. We know that's the formula for area of a circle. So the area is going to be pi multiplied by r squared. What is pi? Pi is 22 over 7. What is r? R is 3.5, but r squared though. So 3.5 squared is 12.25. And we put it over 1. And we have 22 over 7. So 22 multiplied by 12.25. And we're going to do 7 multiplied by 1. And so we have 22 multiplied by 12.25 is going to be 269.5. And 7 times 1 is 7. We divide 269.5 by 7. And we get 38.5. So the area of one can is going to be 38.5 centimeters squared. That's the area of one can. What are they asking us for? They want the total area occupied by the cans. So how much cans do we have though? So we have 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. So we have 24 cans. So we want the total area occupied by the cans, don't we? And we have 24 cans. So it's going to be that. So, but we already know the area of one can. So if we know the area of one can, we just have to multiply it by what? 24 to get the total area. And so it's going to be 38.5 multiplied by 24. Because we know that each can occupies the area of 38.5. So it's going to be 924 centimeters squared, and that's going to be the total area occupied by the cans. Now it says Jim bought 5 regular cases of sodas. How many cans of sodas did he buy? Well, we know that one case holds how much? 24 cans. How much cases did he buy? 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means that he bought 24 times 5. That means he bought 120 cans of soda. So let's move on to the next question. Here we have number 16. It says an airplane A is 350 miles from P. And if we look carefully, the diagram shows us what's happening. And so what they want us to do is they want us to figure out the distance of PR. And so the distance of PR is here. The distance PR, that's this distance. Notice here that we are given two sides. We are given 350 and we are given 280. So we are given two sides. So to figure out what this side is, all right? And a good hint is that this is a right triangle. So that means that you need to just use Pythagoras theorem. What is Pythagoras theorem? Pythagoras theorem is the way that we, could find different sides on a right triangle. And it says that c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared, where c is the hypotenuse or the longest side, okay? So c is the hypotenuse or the longest side. And so let's use Pythagoras theorem. Let's label it first. Well, 350 is the hypotenuse, that's C. 280 is A, and so we're left with B. The Pythagoras theorem says C squared equals to A squared plus B squared. And so what we want to do is we want to figure out what B is. And so that's why I send the A squared over, because I want to isolate B. So that means that B squared is equal to C squared minus A squared. Switch the equation around, and we have that B squared. Sorry, I didn't switch the equation around. What we're supposed to do is, let me erase that line. So we don't need this line. I wrote it twice. We do not need that line. So if we switch the equation around and we substitute, what we have here is we have C squared because, okay, C squared, that's 350 squared, and A squared, that's 280 squared, okay? Because all I did was I switched the equation around and I write C squared minus A squared. And we know that C is what? C is 350. We know that A is 280. So it's 350 squared minus 280 squared. That's going to be equal to 122,500 minus 78,400. And so let's subtract them. When we subtract them, we get B squared is equal to 44,100. Now what we want to do is we want to take the square root of both sides. And so let's take the square root of both sides because we want to we only want B. We don't want B squared. We want what B is. So if we take the square root of both sides, the square root cancel with the square, so we left with b is equal to the square root of 44,100. And so we're left with b is equal to 210. And so that means that the distance PR is actually equal to 210 miles. All right. Let's move on to the next question, question 16b. Here we have to figure out what is the angle P. And so the angle P is this one, right? That's the missing angle. Let's call it theta. And so let's label the sides of our triangle. So this side, it's opposite to the given angle. So that's 280 is going to be the opposite. We also have the hypotenuse because we know it's the hypotenuse because it's opposite the right angle. So 350 is the hypotenuse. And so what trig ratio contains opposite and hypotenuse? Well, that's going to be the sine ratio. And so we have hypotenuse is 350. We have the opposite is 280. And we don't know what theta is. And so let's use, remember the acronym SOHCAHTOA? SOHCAHTOA. So SOHCAHTOA. This is what we're using right now. These are trig ratios. You either can use the sine ratio, the cosine ratio, or you could use the tangent. But here we want to use the sine because we have opposite and hypotenuse. That's the one that we're using. We have the hypotenuse and we're trying to, we have the hypotenuse and we have the opposite, but we're trying to find the given angle. So we can use the sine ratio because we have these two, the opposite and hypotenuse, and we're just trying to find the given angle. And so let's use the sine ratio for this one. And so let me erase our link. So here we have the sine ratio that we're going to use. Remember, sine of theta is going to be equal to opposite over hypotenuse. What is the opposite? Well, the opposite is 280. What is the hypotenuse? The hypotenuse is 350. What is theta? Well, theta is P because that's the angle P, right? That's what we're trying to find, P. And so I put sine over 1 because I'm preparing to cross multiply. So let's cross multiply 350 multiplied by sine of P and 1 times 280. So we're left with sine P is equal to 1. So we're left with sine P. So what we did here, we cross multiply. So we have 350 multiplied by sine P. So we are left with 350 times sine P is equal to 1 times 280. We multiply 1 by 280. That gives us 280. And we have 350 multiplied by sine of P. What are we going to do? Well, we have to move this 350. We don't want this 350. So what we're going to do, we're going to divide both sides by 350. Those two cancels. And so these two 350 cancel, and that's what we wanted. We wanted sine P to be by itself. Okay, so we are left with sine P equal to what? 280 divided by 350. So again, after already cancel these out, we are left with sine P is equal to 280 divided by 350. But what we have to do is we have to do the sine inverse of both sides because we want to eliminate the sine because we just want P. So at this point, I'm going to do the sine inverse of both sides because I want to eliminate the sine function and just have P. So again, sine inverse of this side is sine inverse of sine P equal to sine inverse of this side as well. And so let's cancel the sine inverse and the sine cancels out each other. So we're just left with P is equal to sine inverse of 280 divided by 350. We put that in our calculator and we get that P is equal to 53.13010235. Let's round up to 2 decimal places. So we have 53.13. And so that means that the angle P to 2 decimal places is 53.13. Okay, that's the answer for this one by using trig ratios. Now let's look at question number 16. It says, calculate the bearing of A from P. That's very important. We want the bearing of A, but it has to be from P. So that means that we're going to draw our north at P. All right, so when it tells us from P, so that means that we know where we're going to draw our north at P. So this is our north, okay? And so we want to go clockwise, and so we have to reach to A. So that is our bearing. That's the angle that we're looking for. This bearing right there. We already know that this one right here is 90 degrees because it's your north, and your north is perpendicular to PR. So that is a right angle. It forms a right angle with that. So that's 90. And this one right here is 53.13 because we just figured that out. That's P. And so let's add them together. So the bearing is going to be 90 degrees. And the reason why it's 90 degrees is because the north is exactly straight above PR. So it's perpendicular to PR and it forms a right angle with it. That's the nature of the north. And so 90 plus 53.13 is going to be 153.13, and that's your bearing. So let's move on the bearing of A from P. So let's move on to question 16D. We have the distance AQ. Here we want this distance. We want to figure out like what is this distance right there? The distance AQ. All right, so let's label our triangle. Well, we know that this distance is opposite the right angle, so that's definitely the hypotenuse. So AQ is the hypotenuse. What else do we know? We also know that this side right here is the adjacent. Okay, sorry. We also know that this side is the adjacent. Why do we know this side is the adjacent? Because this side right here, that's the opposite. Because it's opposite the given angle. So if this is the hypotenuse and this is the opposite, well, this is definitely the adjacent. So that means that 280 is the adjacent, and the hypotenuse we don't know, but we do know is theta. We know that theta is 56 degrees. So let's put in the information that we know. We know that we don't know what the hypotenuse is. So let's call that X. We do know what the adjacent is. That's 280. And we do know what the given angle is. That's 56 degrees. So what trig ratio would we use? Remember SOHCAHTOA? We have sine ratio, opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine ratio, that's cosine, that's adjacent over hypotenuse. And we have TOA, that's tangent, opposite over adjacent. So which one of these will we use? Will we use sine? Can we even use sine? We don't know what the opposite is, so we can't use sine. Can we use cosine? Or can we use tangent? Well, the problem with tangent is we don't know what the opposite is, so we can't use tangent. But we could use cosine. And so here we have to use cosine because we have the adjacent. We just don't know what the hypotenuse is, and we can define that using the cosine function. So let's continue. So we have cosine, that's going to be the adjacent over the hypotenuse. What is the adjacent? The adjacent is 280. What is the hypotenuse? The hypotenuse is X. What is theta? Theta is 56. We saw that. That's the given angle. I put it over 1 because I'm preparing the cross multiply. So we multiply X times cos of 56 and 1 times 280. And so we have X times cosine of 56. And that's going to be equal to 1 times 280. And so we're going to say X times cosine of 56, that's going to be equal to. What have we done here? What I've done here is I just want X. So I just I just want X. So because I just want X, I'm going to divide both sides. I'm going to divide both sides by cosine of 56 because I want to get rid of this cosine of 56. And so those two cancel out each other. And so I'm just left with X is equal to 280 divided by cosine of 56. What did I do? I cross multiplied. Okay. Then I did X times cosine 56, 1 times 280, which is 280. Then again, I want to get rid of this cosine 56. So I divide both sides by cosine 56, cancel, cancel. And so X is going to be equal to 280 divided by cosine 56. And if you put that in your calculator, you should get 500.721662. And if we express that to 2 decimal places, the answer is 500.72. And so that means that the distance AQ, correct to 2 decimal places, is 500.72. Okay, let's move on to question number 17. Here we have a quadratic function. They give us a quadratic function. And what we want to do is we want to complete the table. So we have to use this function that they have given us to complete this table. What is missing? We are missing this number, and we're also missing this number. We don't know what those numbers are. We do know the x values, but we don't know the y values. And so let's continue. So we have to use this function. Y is equal to 6 plus x minus x squared. So we know what is the x value, as x is equal to -2. So I'm going to take -2. In order to find the y value, this missing value, I'm going to take -2 and substitute it into this equation and see what I get. So wherever I see x, I'm going to put -2. So 6 plus -2 minus -2 all squared. We know that a negative and a positive and a negative multiplied by each other is a negative. And we know that -2 squared is just going to be 4. And so we have 6 minus 2 minus 4, and that is equal to 0. So that means that this number right here is 0. That value is 0. So let's move on to x is equal to 1. So this one. So again, I'm going to use this equation to fill in. I'm going to use this equation to figure out what is this value, this missing value. And so I have 6 plus x minus 2. Okay, so wherever I see x, I'm going to put 1. So 6 plus 1 minus 1 squared. So we still have 1 squared. 1 squared is 1, and 6 plus 1, well, that's 7. And 7 minus 1 is 6. So that means that this is 6. So that means that right here is 0 because we got that from here. That's 0. And then right here is 6. And so that's going to be 6. So that's a completed table. Let's move on to the next part. It says using a scale of 1 centimeter to 1 unit, which means that we're counting in ones, and each block is 1 unit. On both axes for -8, is that not equal to x? Is that not equal to 8? What that basically means is that on your x-axis, the highest you have to go is 8. The lowest you could go is -8. You can't go lower than that. You can't go higher than that. It must be exactly from -8 to 8. And then on the y is the same thing. They say, you know what? Let's just make them the same. The highest y value you could have is 8. The lowest y value you could have is -8. So you can't go lower than -8. You can't go higher than 8. Draw the graph of y is equal to 6 plus x minus x squared. So to draw the graph of y is equal to 6 plus x minus x squared. That's exactly what we have on the table. So we just have to use our table of values, like our values that we got from our table, to be able to plot the points and draw the graph. Okay, so let's remember what we got for our values. So remember for our table, let's remember we had -6, we have -3, -6, -2, 0, -1, 4, 0, 6, 1, 6, 2, 4, 3, 0, and 4, and -6. So we're gonna plot those points. So let's plot those points. The first point we're gonna plot is -3, 6. That's this point. -3, 6. The second point that we have to plot is -2, 0. So this is -2, 0 right there. The next point is -4. Sorry, it's -1, 4. This is -1 and 4. That's that point. The next point is 0, 6, 0, 6. So we always start off with the x value. The next point is 1, 1, 6. So it's going to be 1, 6. That's the next value. The next point is 2, 4. That's 2, 4. And the next point is 3, 0. This is 3, 0. And the next point is 4 and -6. And that's this point right here. Notice that my x and y axis are labeled. And notice that my highest y value is 8. My lowest y value is -8. My lowest x value is -8. My highest x value is 8. And notice that I'm counting in 1. So each block is 1. Okay, so that's what they mean for you think each block is going to be 1 centimeter to 1 unit. Okay, so now we have the points. Let's graph it. So this is your parabola. So draw your parabola. And what you also want to do is you want to also label the equation, label your parabola as well. Y is equal to 6 plus x minus x squared. And so that's the first one. So we just did that. All right. On the same axes, draw the graph of y is equal to 2x. Okay. So this is y is equal to 2x plus 0. We could put a plus 0. And what that basically means, so that's what they want us to draw, this line. Y is equal to 2x, all right, plus 0, okay? So this is the equation of the line that we have. This is the slope-intercept form. So basically what's happening here is 2 is your slope. So what do I mean by that? Look, m, which is the slope, that's going to be 2 over 1, because notice 2 is your slope. So what is this telling us? This is telling us that we have to go up twice and move to the right once. That's what the slope is telling us. And this right here is your y-intercept. That's telling us that we have to start at the origin. So the y-intercept is the origin. So that's how we're going to get this. We have to start at the origin and then go up twice and go to the right once. All right, and that's what this equation is telling us. And so let's graph this line. And so we only need 2 points for a line, so that we can be able to fully graph a line. So let's go. So again, we start at the origin. That's our first point. So we start at the origin. We go up twice. So it's going to be 1, 2, and then we go to the right once, 1. So this is going to be our next point. Let me do it again. We go up twice, 1, 2, and we go across once, 1. And so this is our next point. So using those 2 points, we can easily draw a line. And this is our line right here. And so this is the line, the graph of the line. Y is equal to 2x. That's this graph. And so now we want the points of intersection. So these two graphs intersect. Well, they intersect here and they intersect here. This point right here is -3, 6. And this point right here is going to be 2, 4. And so where they intersect is -3, 6, -3, -6, and 2, 4. And so the point of intersection is going to be -3, -6, and 2, 4. And we already draw the graph, right? So we already draw the graph y is equal to 2x. We found the intersection. Now we want to draw the line of symmetry for the parabola y is equal to 6 plus x minus x squared. So we have to draw the line of symmetry. The line of symmetry cuts the parabola exactly in half. And so if we look at this, let's go back again. If we look at this parabola, right, where is it going to be cut in half? Where it's going to be cut in half? Right here. You see that line? The same line. This line cuts the parabola in half, okay? And if you look carefully, this line is x is equal to 0.5 because this is 0, this is 1. It's exactly in the middle. That's going to be 0.5. So this line that cuts the parabola in half is x is equal to 0.5. And so that is the line of symmetry for this parabola. X is equal to 0.5. It cuts it directly in half right there. And so we have already drawn a line of symmetry, and they say write down the equation of the line of symmetry. But the equation for the line of symmetry is x is equal to 0.5. And so that brings us to the end. Yes, that brings us to the end of this paper. Hopefully you found this video helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.